What is burnout? The number one cause for burnout is workplace toxicity. So burnout itself is about looking at the scale of stress that we're under on a daily basis. And imagine the scale to be 1 to 10, 1 being low stress, 10 being high stress. And actually we need a level of stress in order to operate effectively each day. So actually being around a 4, a 5, a 6 is probably optimal, but anything over a 6, once we get to consistently every day at 6, going into 7, 8 and 9, that's when we're more likely to hit our own burnout. So the key is, how do you maintain a healthy level of stress with your daily pressures? So imagine a bucket. And in the bucket, you wake up in the morning and the bucket is empty. There is no pressure and no stress. And as the day goes through, all the decisions you make through the day, what shall I wear for work? What shall I have for breakfast? What's my first meeting? What preparation do I need to make? Oh, I've got this difficult call to make. How am I going to make that call? So as the day goes on, you have more and more pressures that add into the bucket. And imagine that this is water going into your bucket. And your bucket can hold so much pressure. All of our buckets are different sizes depending on how much pressure we can actually maintain. Once the pressure becomes too great, then the water starts overflowing. So that might be more of a 7, 8 or 9 scale. Now, if it's a one-off, we can recover from that quite quickly. But if it's a constant day in, day out, operating at a 7, an 8, a 9 or a 10, then actually that's when we start to build that burnout and get to a place where we just can't cope anymore. So the key is, how do you keep the level of pressure, the level of water to an optimal each day? Well, one of the best ways of reducing the stress and the pressure from each day is gaining quality sleep. Quality sleep allows us to process all that went on in the day and to let go. And so when we wake up the next day, we feel in a much calmer place and the level of water has either diminished or is much lower. So one of the keys is about having quality sleep. Then it's looking at what can you do on a regular basis to keep the levels of stress low. So what can you do from a restorative basis in order to keep emptying your bucket? So sleep being one of the best ways, but some of the other ways might be going for a walk. If you've got a dog, take your dog for a walk. It could be doing yoga, it could be doing exercise, it could be eating healthily. It could be chatting with your friends or a colleague. It could be some sort of outlet, maybe journaling, maybe doing some artwork, something that helps you to switch off. Whatever that thing is for you, it's thinking about that. So keeping the level of pressure down on a regular basis is really important to avoid getting to burnout. Now, what actually happens for the body when you get to high stress and ultimately burnout? So on a day-to-day basis, when our stress pressures are at a reasonable level, sort of mid-range, then actually the brain can access what's called the intellectual part of the brain. And the intellectual part of the brain is where you can be creative, you can be resourceful, you can look at problems and come up with solutions. You can be in your best positive state to be able to approach others, to be empathetic and to be able to be part of the solution. But as pressure builds, we actually move into the primitive part of the brain, and the primitive part of the brain is there to help us to survive and keep safe. So when occasionally we do get into a stressful place, the primitive part takes over and protects us, and it knows ideas and ways to keep us safe. So you hit that fight, flight, or freeze. So when you're in that primitive state, you are protecting, you're looking for danger all around you, and you're looking at ways to be able to take flight, fight, or freeze. Now, when you're in that state, you can't think of solutions, you can't be creative, you can't be empathetic, because you've just got to act, you've just got to deal with that situation in the moment. When we are constantly under pressure on a day-to-day basis, and it builds and we're not getting the sleep, or we're not reducing the level of water and pressure in our buckets, and it's overflowing, then we can't access the intellectual part of our brain. And the only way you can do that is to go into more of a restorative place, where you take activities that help you. Almost think about, you have taps on your bucket that helps you to keep the levels of pressure down regularly. So as I said, journaling, going for a walk, whatever the thing is, talking to friends to keep the levels down, getting great sleep. But on a regular basis, if you're unable to do that and you're having poor sleep, you will find that you stay in the primitive part of your brain and you're in the survival mode. When you're in survival mode, if somebody says to you, you need to take a break, you need to rest, because they can see what's happening to you, you will think it's criticism. You will go to a place where you think, I need to protect myself, they don't think I'm good enough, they don't think I'm competent. And so you will work more. We actually get into a bit of an addictive state where we will work even more, even harder, because what if people don't think we're good enough? Will I lose my job? Will I lose my credibility? What will others think of me? And suddenly we start to panic. So we think we need to work more and more and more in order to be able to cope. But of course, that just makes more and more pressure. But we can't see that when we're in that place. So actually telling somebody you're at burnout, you need to stop, you need to rest, is unhelpful. What you need to do is to look at small ways to help the person to find ways to be more restorative, so that they can access the intellectual part of their brain to find solutions. Hopefully this has given you some idea around what burnout is and how you can reduce the burnout and how you can manage this.